Hey, everybody, welcome to this episode of Think Business Live. Looking forward to talking with Marina Hutton. Marina, it's great to see you again. You are a certified hypnotist, meditation yoga teacher, management consultant, philosopher, seeker at heart. Looking forward to connecting with you as a gift, which I really appreciated. You you offered me a free hypnosis so we could have something to talk about when we were live, which was really great, really fun. I loved the experience. And it was almost so cool that I almost can't even remember what we talked about. It was almost like whatever we talked about, I like almost let it go. So it's like not even like in my being. I can't explain it anymore. So talk a little bit about how hypnosis works, can you?
Yeah, well, first, that's right. And amnesia and forgetting is actually another sign of hypnosis. um, so yeah, you're saying to share a little bit about hypnosis. I could share a lot, but I guess it's really a way to utilize the power of your unconscious mind to create shifts through a facilitated experience. So as a hypnotist, I'm trying to help unlock those resources and make shifts back there. And ultimately, it's the person who's doing it. Because as you can imagine, we have so much. So during the day, we have, some things that we're paying attention to, maybe 5 to 7 things at a time. And really, we have so many more resources and learning outside that.
So how do we talk about that? Tapping into our unconscious, like. Talk a little bit about the unconscious a little bit. Where does it sit? What role does it play when we access it? What does that mean? All that.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So if I were to, let's use the terms unconscious and conscious mind. And so first of all, these are all terms that, like languages in general, we make up different words for different concepts. And so the conscious mind being that which we focus on, like right now I'm talking to you, I'm aware of the temperature in the room, maybe some sound outside. And usually that conscious mind is focused on about like 5 to 9 things at a time. Now, the unconscious mind is that which is everything that happens automatically. My heart's beating. I have different memories and experiences that are shaping how I'm interpreting what's happening right now without having to think about it. And that's what I'm referring to as the unconscious mind.
Yeah. And so how many things are going live in the unconscious mind? So if we're actively conscious about 5 to 9 things, how many things are under the surface operating?
Oh my gosh. A lot.
Yeah. More than 5 to 9.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of like a computer, right? So let's talk about this. So
yes.
what I'm hearing you say is it sounds like it's kind of like a computer, right? If you're on the computer like we are now, if we had too many things, too many apps, too many whatever running in the background, it would slow everything down, right? So we're doing one thing right now, right? There's a lot of, I would say, the StreamYard that we're using. You're in Ecuador, I'm in Detroit. We got things streaming right there. We could probably count 5 to 9. But if there were more, everything, the unconscious would be slowing down the app, right? The apps in this scenario. So how do we release and heal the unconscious so we can be more present in the conscious?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, one, I guess, is and maybe it even comes back to like that normal awareness, or even what one would notice in meditation as that observer, realizing that, when we're interacting with someone and maybe we have an automatic response or we have an automatic thought, realizing that it is a pattern. And that pattern helps us a lot in that it streamlines our responses. We don't have to constantly think about, I need to do this, I need to do that. However, it can also be kind of lazy and get in our way if we don't want that programming anymore.
Well, let's talk about being conscious, right? So let's talk about flow state, being conscious in the zone, right? I mean, you hear that in athletics, getting in the zone, being in flow state, being above the line. And so, I'm a business coach. I work with salespeople to C-level execs, managers all over the world. And so how can people hyper focus, be more conscious so they can be more effective at what they're doing, right? Because I know for me, when I'm in the flow, it's like when I do interviews, I don't prepare questions because I feel like I can't prepare them. I am just actively listening and proactively listening and in a flow state when I am here. So that's where the questions come from. And when I ask a question, sometimes I think to myself, I couldn't have even written that question because I didn't know what the energy was going to be like of the call. And so how can people focus more, and get in the zone in a flow state?
Yeah, that's a really good question. One, I would say it depends on the person's temperament. So, like a way of maybe something to interject the ordinary. Maybe it's like getting up and like moving. Maybe it's doing something random. Maybe it's taking a few breaths to reset the nervous system. So those could be some really simple things that someone could do. And the other one could be that when you actually get in that state of feeling like a little bit more relaxed, just seeding a suggestion of or an intent of how you want to be feeling.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. And so let's talk about hypnosis, right? I think sometimes when people think hypnosis, they think about, like, my son's senior all night party, they had a hypnotist and they had, people running up and down, and barking like a dog and, things of that nature. But hypnosis can really help people get over past traumas, just unleash a piece of themselves where they are stuck. As a business coach, I work with people who are stuck and want to get unstuck. So I always love talking to my guests because in their field, they're getting people unstuck. And so talk just about a little bit more about hypnosis and who's a good candidate for what.
Mm-hmm. So
for what areas? Let's say someone's afraid of, public speaking or afraid of making a cold call or, something of that nature.
Yeah, well, anyone could be a good subject, I guess. It really depends on the will. It's more really about the will to change.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah. So in hypnosis, like so you talk about your son's like party and there's a hypnotist, and in hypnosis, when you're doing a session with someone, really the hypnotist can't make you do anything you don't actually want to do. Even when people are clucking, they actually want to. Some part of them is like open to it. And so, yeah, it's really about the will to change, that if someone they're like ready to make this change and it needs to be now and it needs to be them, that's the perfect time to do it.
The will to change. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because in the way I kind of articulate it is, as a business coach, I can work with people who are growth-minded, open-minded, can be vulnerable, really, but and the bigger the ego, the harder it is for me to do my work because in your words, their will isn't there, right? They have to want to do the work. They have to have the will to evolve, change, and grow.
Yeah, and it's interesting as you're saying that. I'm thinking of when you say the ego, it's like that's another automatic problem, another automatic pattern that's running for someone, and it's like, Are they ready to actually let that get out of the way and just surrender to the process and the change?
Yeah. So how do people surrender, right? Because I think we're seeing a lot of that right now in businesses, right? People surrendering. We're seeing it in the Great Resignation. People just leaving jobs, being more connected with their self-worth, being more connected to their personal values. And so people are surrendering to wanting more. And then and then in many ways, I think looking for the mentors and the people to help take them there. There's studies that, if people feel disconnected to the person who runs the company, even if they're making a lot of money, they'll move companies and make less with someone who they're more connected to. So can you just kind of talk about just the surrender process and what that looks like?
Yeah. Well, I think surrender in itself, that word, as people are listening to this, maybe just take a moment to pause and what does that word actually mean to you already? What comes up? Because surrender, some people hear that and they almost get like a fear response. Like, what does that mean? What am I surrendering to? And then other people are like, oh, it's this beautiful surrender. So first it comes down to kind of like, what's that meaning around it? And sorry, can you re-say the question? I went off on like a...
Yeah, let me simplify the question because it was kind of a long-winded question. how do people, someone raises their awareness and they identify, okay, this is a problem. Now,
Mm-hmm.
how do they then surrender, ask for help, and then really reach out, in this case, to somebody, they could reach out to a business coach, or they can reach out or to a hypnotist to help them get over, to change, to growth, to the next level, to get unstuck, right? So as they surrender, where do you enter the hypnotist? Because I've never been to a hypnotist until you reached out to me and said, let me give you a session so you can kind of talk about it. And it was great. It was incredible. I mean, I loved it. It was so great. So when does somebody say, I need an attorney, an accountant, a business coach, and a hypnotist, right? Where are you as far as the continuum of the surrender and the healing and the growth?
Oh, that is such a good question. Okay. Yeah. So I'd say okay, someone wants to start their business. And so say you have like a perfect strategy, all of that, like, where you're going. And then I find people actually get in their own way.
Yeah.
So it's like when there's something that's getting in their way and they it's almost beyond language. Like, when we just feel stuck.
Correct.
And we're like,
I
just can't put my finger on it. And
right.
I've done these things and I just want to do something different. And maybe I'm sick of talking about it.
Yeah. Right. Sick of talking about it. So let me work with someone who is trained. Let me just say this, trained like you are, to get me into a deep hypnotic, state of mind where I'm tapping into my unconscious, this is what I'm hearing you say, my unconscious, and releasing things to basically step into more of my highest potential.
Yes. Yes. I'm working. Another term I sometimes use is it's like you're going in and you're shifting your internal landscape on some level, kind of like you were saying, and then you come out and something's changed. Weird.
Right. You shift the landscape, and sometimes it's talk about this. How sometimes it's just small little shifts, right? Talk about that if you could.
Yeah. I feel like there's such a good point. So with the small little shifts, it's often I use the word subtle for like the past years, and my husband was often would be like, Marina, that's not subtle. That's not a subtle shift. And I'm like, really? Oh, okay. And I think that it's almost like people miss it because there's something about like in the emotional and that space beyond words, that moment when we notice that something in our being has shifted. It's like we can't really put it into words all the time, but something is different, something that is the space from which you're responding.
Yeah. No, I think it's great. It was an amazing experience. Walk somebody through who's never been hypnotized, kind of what the overall experience is like.
Yeah, so the overall experience is first you be setting an intention. Like, what do you want out of it? Like, how can I help you? Okay, this is what you want out of it. This is the outcome. And very much like outcome focused, because we're not really, it's important. Like might be clearing stuff in the past, but it's really like, okay, where are we going towards? So after having a bit of a conversation, then it would go into a mix of what we call like induction. So really just working with the senses and occupying your attention through language, through movement, so that that conscious part of your mind that's focusing on a few things, we actually give it something to focus on.
Yeah.
And then it ends up creating this space of like relaxed awareness. So you'd be sitting there and maybe following my words that maybe sound a little bit confusing on purpose. And then all of a sudden you're just in this relaxed space and you might have this experience of like listening to me talk, or you have different visuals and experiences that you aren't usually familiar with. And then it can be like a mix of almost like a guided imagery. There's different suggestions where once you get to that state of where I can see that you're at a state of trance, then I might be putting in those different suggestions and what you actually want in your unconscious mind. And so it's really this loop where as I'm watching someone, I'm constantly calibrating, and it's like a dance. I'm seeing what's going on. I'm responding with language and vice versa. or
Yeah.
not vice versa. But.
Yeah, no, I love it. I mean, it was like meditating to me. You know, I meditate every day. So it was kind of a deeper meditation, a deeper live guided meditation. And you were able to kind of, you know, walk me through it. And I loved it. I loved it. So yeah, and I think it really helped me. I can't necessarily point to how, but I know it did, and I can feel and sense that it did. Does that make sense?
Totally makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah. And I think that was part of kind of the overall experience, you know. And I know people who have been hypnotized and quit smoking and done this. And like you said, if you're changing the landscape and the triggers and the this, you know, and help healing the unconscious, you know, thoughts, it's great. It was great. I really was grateful and appreciative. I'm absolutely for sure going to do it again. Let me ask you this. How, you know, the 1 minute Reader's Digest version, how did you get into this field?
Oh, I got into this field. I'm also a very avid meditator, and a friend of mine did hypnosis with me one day, and I just was like, what is this? This puts like language and art to everything that I want to do.
Yeah.
And it exists. So really it was a friend that's already trained in it, and I was just blown away that it was the thing that I kept on kind of wishing existed.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. And, you know, it's interesting, the mind, you did something with me, which I thought was so cool. Kind of like, you know, you kind of had my hands, you know, like where it was like a balloon and then a weight. And I did that to my wife and my daughter, and they were kind of blown away. It was very cool. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah. All right. So tell everybody how, Marina, how they can connect with you.
Yeah, so they can connect with me, Marina Hutton. I'm Marina Hutton on Facebook and LinkedIn. And then if you're a hypnotist, I help hypnotists with imposter syndrome, or really it could be coaches or anything. So,
yeah, I think a lot of people have them. You know, I hear that a lot as a coach. I mean, you know, I work with, you know, C-level execs to salespeople, everything in between, solopreneurs to Fortune, you know, companies. And I think a lot of people have imposter syndrome. I think it's a very real thing. And so if you can help them with that in business, I think that is great. Quick speed round for you, Marina. Best piece of wisdom you've ever received?
Listen.
It's a good one. Best favorite book?
Fountainhead.
On Ron. All right, good. And finish this sentence. If I'm someone who has the will to change, I need to
change.
It's good. Keep it simple. Marina, I appreciate you being on the show. I appreciate working with you, and what you've done for me. It's been great. So thank you. Thank you so much. Tell everybody how they can connect with you one more time.
Thank you. Yep, you can connect with me, find me on LinkedIn or Facebook at Marina Hutton, as is written here, and I'd love to connect.
All right, great.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody. Just a quick thought to the Think community. You know, whether it's in business or our personal lives, we always have to really kind of raise our self-awareness and be willing to do the work and change. And if you can help us get on an unconscious level and release some of that to be more conscious in our present day, Marina, I think it's great. So thanks for sharing today. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Marina.
Thank you.